will see the size, shape, or a silhouette of an old man's head. You can see the round head, the nose, the mouth, the lips, and the wrinkly old behind the formation of the stone. The archway here is a formation from the sea through sea erosion. As waves crash against the cliff, it carves out this archway, and eventually the archway will collapse, and that will leave a sea stack or a tall pillar of rock standing on its own. Later in the tour, we will point out the sea stack to you in a different part of the cliff. The tower here was built in 1813 by the British. During the British occupation of the island of Ireland, the British were afraid that Napoleon or the Spanish were going to invade the island of Ireland and then subsequently invade Britain. So they built a series of these towers all around our coast. There are 54 of them in total. They run all the way from Dublin and as far south as County Cork and as far north as County Donegal. Each one of these towers can see one to the north and one to the south. They're all linked by the line of sight. They were not defensive towers. There was no cannon based on them. But there was a garrison in the towers. And their job was, if an invading fleet was coming up from the south of Ireland, or the first tower to see this invading fleet, they would light a fire on top. And each other tower had a lookout. And as they would see the fire, they would subsequently light a fire themselves, and so on and so forth, with a chain reaction all the way up along the coast, which would give some time to the armies in the north to get ready for an invasion. But this never actually happened, as neither Napoleon or the got deposited on one side of the riverbank. Then, over millions of years, through atmospheric pressure, all this debris got compacted into the rock that you see before you. But this rock was actually going much further out. It was going out towards the Aran Islands, which are now on our left-hand side. And over a very long period of time, the main creator of these cliffs has been the wild Atlantic Ocean, crashing against the base of the cliff, wearing away at its base, which then in turn makes the top unstable and it falls into the water. The cliff faces along the Cliffs of Moher are in a very unusual formation. Not only are they vertical, but they also run in a zigzag formation if you were to look at them from an aerial photograph. We have been told by local geologists that the reason for this is because the Burren region in the north of the county runs underneath the cliffs. The Burren is made up of limestone, and the limestone runs underneath all this debris and sandstone and mudstone. As the cliffs break away, they break away in accordance with very strange lines that run through the burn. These grikes are deep gashes in the rock, run in straight lines through the burn region, and they run from a southeast to a northwest direction. As we move along to this section of the cliffs, you will begin to see some people possibly walking along the top. Up to 1.5 million people visit these cliffs on an annual basis, making them Ireland's second most popular tourist attraction after the Guinness Storehouse in Dublin. During the nesting season here at the Cliffs of Moher, which is from the middle of April until the middle of July, over 40,000 birds will nest here, making it one of Ireland's largest seabird colonies. The largest family of birds that nest here are the auks family, and they consist of the guillemot, the razorbill, and the puffin. So we'll start with the puffin. The puffin is the most popular bird and the one we get most asked about. Puffins have multicoloured beaks, they are black and white in colour, and they also have orange feathers. They come here to nest, but they don't actually nest. They burrow into the grassy areas along the cliff, and then they mate in a pair. Their direct cousins, the guillemot and the razorbill, look very similar. The razorbill is jet black on top with a white underbelly and has a white stripe running along a flat black beak. The guillemot is a bit lighter and grey in colour with a white underbelly and a long pointed beak. You should be able to see some of them in the water all around the boat. The crew will point out these birds from time to time during the voyage. They're quite amazing birds. The guillemot and the razorbill actually don't build any nest. They lay their egg directly onto the edge of the cliff, onto the cliff ledges. The egg is actually shaped in such a way that it cannot roll off the edge if one of the pair leave. If the egg was to fall over, it actually rolls in a centric circle rather than from left to right, and this is a safeguard mechanism because there's no nest to hold the egg inside. As we get a bit closer to the center or the highest point in the cliffs, if you look to your right, you should be able to see a large cave. This cave on our right, if the crew could point it out to you now, featured in Harry Potter and the Half-Blood Prince, which was the second last Harry Potter film to be filmed in the series. Another very famous film that was filmed here was the 1987 classic The Princess Bride. In this particular film, these cliffs are the cliffs of South, with Wesley and Buttercup and hello, my name is Inigo Montoya. Don't kill my father. I'm about to die. If you haven't seen it, look it up on YouTube. It's a classic. It went straight to home video in 1987. At around this section, you can see a round tower. This tower was built in 1830 by Cornelius O'Brien, who was a local landlord who owned the cliffs until his death in 1857. He built the tower for the many Victorian tourists who used to come and take in the magnificent views from the top. You see, from the top on a clear day, you can see as far south as our county of Kerry, as far west as the Aran Islands, and as far north as County Galway. The sea stack, coming up on our right hand side, was formed a very, very long time and was purely formed by sea erosion. The first stage of erosion would have worked out a cave. Eventually this cave would go and get eroded right through to the other side, and this would have created an archway coming out from the top of the cliff down onto the top of the sea stack. Over time then, the archway collapsed, and that's what led to the sea stack as we see it today. But this process happens over a very long period of time. We have seen some photographs of the sea stack from the late 1800s or early 1900s, and it looks very similar to the way it does today. The water here is very deep right up to the edge of the cliff. Currently, the vessel is operating in 120 feet of water. The height of the cliffs themselves at the tower is 702 feet or 220 meters. The last headland point that we pass here on our right hand side is called Isle na Sharrock. And Isle na Sharrock means the cliff of folds. You see, every single place name in Ireland has a name. When the British were mapping out our country in the mid-1600s, they listened to what the local people were saying in our Gaelic dialect, and they phonetically wrote down what people were saying. So I'll just give you an example of some of the local towns and what they mean. We have a town very close to us here called Lisdoonvarna. And Lisdoonvarna translates into the gap between the two forts or the two settlements. Lis is Gaelic for fort, and Doon is fort also. Varna is Gap. So Lisbon, Varna. And in Lisbon, Varna, if you've been there, there's a deep ravine running right through the middle of the whole town. So at some stage there were two settlements on either side of the ravine, and that's where it gets its name. The village of Dula translates into Black Pool, Dublin, Black Pool. And this is to do with all the turbulences of the water from deep Atlantic swells down at the harbour. So folks, we're just going to start making our way back to the harbour now. If anyone has any questions at all, the crew will be more than happy to answer them. Thank you very much for listening. I hope you enjoyed our adventure beneath the cliffs.